Sunday, November 15th, in 1964. Early that morning, a small group of believers met for a communion service. Then the first congregational service followed at 11 in the auditorium of Northridge Public School, just a couple of kilometers from here. The real history of North Park did not begin on that memorable date. It really began a year or so earlier. A week-long Billy Graham-type evangelistic campaign was held here in London at Beale Secondary School. It was in essence a mission to the City of London. Following this event, a number of folk from 4 different churches decided to meet to discuss what was on their hearts.
And they were excited, and so they met for the next year for prayer and Bible study for the Lord's guidance, what to do.
And they thought we should perhaps organize a mission to part of the city that was unreached. A year of meetings in basement rec rooms, living rooms, led to the planning group to decide that those interested in pursuing the idea further would attempt to establish a full-fledged church.
Mark Seabrook said, well, our basement is big, there's a big area, and just bring some chairs down. So we bought a few chairs and enough to do, and we met every Wednesday night for prayer and meetings. We talked that any guidance that you got from the Lord this past weekend, because we'd ask the Lord for His direction in things, and some things came about in slowly and in His time, but we were anxious to not miss anything.
What eventuated was the inaugural formal meeting on that eventful day, November the 15th in 1964.
Well, it's been a privilege through the years to be one of the founding families, because we saw the seed of what God was starting, and now we've seen it grow into what God continues to seed and feed and grow. It was fun watching my parents on a discovery journey. This was very new for them. Things went well sometimes, things didn't go so well sometimes. There were lots of lessons along the road, but they were always very dedicated to the purpose of North Park, to the idea of bringing church to a community, and to try to bring it in a less structured way so that more people from the community would feel like they could come to church and find Jesus.
This was a mission effort. It would not be successful without missionary work. For the weeks before the opening, those who had committed to the work, and some friends who had not, canvassed the area with leaflets within a kilometer or 2 of the school. And then we waited with bated breath to see what God would do.
On our first Sunday, we welcomed one new family from the neighborhood after visiting every home in Northridge. Next week, they brought their neighbors. We continued to grow and saw many come to faith.
I can remember being in a great big gym, sitting in a horseshoe circle, very informal, in folding chairs. And we had come from a much more structured small church where we sat in pews and everything was very structured. And I did wonder as a kid, and I won't forget this, wondering about, will God meet us here in the gym of a school versus being in a church? And it became very quickly apparent that God was there, God was blessing, the church was growing, and people were being discipled, and we were trying to live more like Jesus every day.
I remember having to pull out the chairs. The chairs were stored underneath the stage, so we'd pull out the chairs and set up the chairs.
In the school, you have metal chairs in a gym floor. It was crack, bang, And in the church, we had carpet, and the organ was playing, and it was church. Real church. It just felt so comfortable.
A neighbor of mine, she came and invited me to coffee hour. In those days, coffee hour was a way of getting community to come out to see what, just a social time. But it also had two elements. We would have a speaker about some secular thing, and then we would also have a devotional or a speaker and something spiritual. And she invited me to coffee hour, and I came out, and then she said, would you like to come with me to church on Sunday? And I thought, no harm. At the time, we were Christians, but not very committed to going to church on a regular basis.
Don't want to be afraid to go out and reach out to neighbors and the city and the country and the world. You know, God will bless. And when we do that, it's just a joy to see people coming to know the Lord in these new churches that we started, and it gives me great joy.
Early in the years of being in the old church building, that we quite often on Sunday afternoons would have guests. My parents would search out people that had just been in North Park maybe for the first time or visiting, and brought them home for for Sunday afternoon dinner, and that was a big part of Sundays for us.
So in 1983, we were over at Glenora and McLean. It was packed. It was packed. There used to be video downstairs. People would go into the basement. The basement was full. The upstairs were full. They were running 2 services on a Sunday morning, and it was jammed.
It was gradual, so it wasn't overnight, of course. But yeah, to think, how fast we outgrew the first building. We thought it was huge when we moved into it,
And I was on the building committee, and we had some exciting conversations, and there was always a lot of excitement. At one point we had Glenora property, we had the Adelaide property, and we had this property. So we had 3 properties and just waiting for the right timing. Transition, like many, was a little bumpy, but we did make it. So when we were here, the first project was $5 million back in the late '80s, and it stopped about 30 feet after the gym, and that was the end of the building. And I had a classroom in a closet, a storage closet, with guys like Clark Hoffnagel, Daniel Hall, Aaron Stark, all those guys. And I said, if you give me a half hour of attention, we'll go out and hit the soccer ball for half an hour. So it's kind of how I get things going. But we were literally in a closet. So the next project was the addition, which I've read everywhere says 1.2 million was raised, but it was actually 2.5 to put on the youth section. That was around 2000.
Youth ministry was always important to the church, and that is one of the things that hasn't changed.
Some of these kids coming back now who we work with and still serving the Lord. They became Christians in the youth group. Yeah. And are growing spiritually, which is really exciting to see. And
at this point, we have our small group is 10 families. And it's been pretty significant and important to our children, and like all of the children's ministry stuff and how much they've been able to be ministered to and connect with each other. Like they're friends outside of church as well, and they're friends at church, which is really special. They're kind of continuing that next generation. And now they're into youth, right? Like a big contingent of them have moved into junior high and now into senior high. And that's pretty special.
We have 4 generations coming to this church. And nothing brings us to tears faster than seeing our grandchildren love to come to youth, love to come to Sunday school, being in the choir, going, loving their Sunday school teachers, loving their Sunday school friends.
Now they're starting to, Peyton and your daughters are starting to move into like the worship team there. So it's like this pretty cool ongoing thing that we get to see of our kids also getting to walk along.
One thing that is great is to see the first fruit of our youth ministry back at the church. I'm talking about Joel, you know. It's good to see someone who started out in Sunday school here and now is back as pastor. That's great. That's really great, you know.
I've always thought to myself, like, I have always been at North Park, and there are people there that I can love and people there that can love me. And I found that very meaningful. And as we've had kids, the thing that I've been struck with, especially recently, is just that kind of intergenerational piece of being part of a community. Because my kids have benefited from their aunts and uncles being some of these people, right? Like, and I think that they feel hopefully safe and secure in our home, but then when they go to other places, when they're in the church, they can look around and point to people, and hopefully they can think to themselves, North Park is a place where I can love people and people can love me. Beyond my biological family that I live with, that spiritual family is very much connected. I know it's not about just these walls for an hour on the weekend. It's that, like, the rest of the week, they know that there are other trusted adults who love them and care for them. And that I know that gives them a huge spiritual well that they can draw on, for sure.
Having a clearer picture of where we came from and how we got here will energize us even more as we look forward to the next 60.
Our prayer is more great things to come, many more people to attend and feel at home here, and young families, and generational continuation.
My prayer going forward is that the ways in which we've grown spiritually and been discipled, been mentored, found friendship, and just grown in our faith over the last 20 years would continue happening in a more meaningful and deep way. We really long for that. That's one of the reasons why we continue to lead in seasons of transition and seasons of change. We have consistently just seen God at work and been faithful to the church, and we want to be part of that. And so we have been so blessed by leaders that have come and gone, that have had really significant and influential, just a hand on our lives, and we appreciate what people have done. But there's like something that we just continue to sense like we want to give to and be part of. So that for me is significant.
I pray that North Park will always keep the principles on which the church was established in mind as they go forward. We need to look for new opportunities. We need to search God's will, and then we need to follow His leading.
Yeah, North Park's a pretty amazing story. It's an independent church. It's 60 years. It's thrived. It's been ups and downs, but it's thrived, and it's continued to thriving. And people are going deeper and proclaiming Jesus. That would be our prayer, that continues.